right, everybody. How's it going? How's it going? Appreciate your patience, uh not giving up on me last night. We had other things going on. I'll tell you about them in just a bit. But welcome to tonight. It is another white t-shirt night. Just to let you know, it has been a busy week. But I'm here and I'm glad that you are too. And let's get started with the show. My name is Stuart Davis, a flawed man of God. I am a humble parishioner at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. Not a pastor, I'm not a biblical scholar, and I haven't been to seminary. I'm not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm here to do is just talk about God, talk about Jesus, talk about the Holy Spirit, talk about the Bible, talk about Christianity, talk about a wide variety of different topics, issues, and current events, and give you my perspective on them. One that I think is reflective of your average Christian guy. I've been a Christian all my life, 40 years, 41 years, non denominational Protestant. Don't subscribe to any particular doctrine or denomination. I'm just in the Word, daily trying to do it better each and every day. Sometimes I'll get it right. Many times I'll get it wrong. But no matter what, if you are tuning into this show, if you are hearing my voice, you are going to be getting my honest opinions on whatever it is we're talking about. So, if you are somebody who is new to the faith, maybe you're not a Christian, but you're wanting to learn more about it. There's something that you think is missing, and maybe there's a voice in the back of your head wondering if there's more to your existence than just your life here on earth. And to this I say, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. Hopefully, perhaps this is the setting that you are looking for to maybe get some questions answered, maybe gain some insights, maybe look through, like I say, the eyes of somebody who's been a Christian for a long time. Maybe you're not impressed or persuaded by social media influencers talking about God, or maybe even listening to a pastor preach from the pulpit. Maybe you're more interested in hearing things from the guy sitting in the pew next to you, somebody who can look to you and say, "Hey, I've been doing this for a long time, and this is what I've been able to pick up." And while that's not a you're not going to be getting a professional perspective of things. You're not going to be getting any scholarly input. Maybe you can just get an idea of what impressions you'll be left with if you sit down, if you stay in that pew and tune in and try to find more about what it's all about. This is a very, very welcoming, very welcoming stream to folks that are in that position. If you are already a Christian and you just enjoy Christian topics and discussions, welcome as well. You'll find we run this very similar to a Wednesday night study group or a Sunday school. It's relaxed, it's informal, it's comfortable. It's where we talk to each other like we're a group together, except for you're stuck staring at my ugly mug throughout this program. But good thing is we're discussing the Bible, so I'm going to be minimizing said mug into the bottom corner, and we'll have the much more important and glorious word and scripture on full display. But no matter what, if it is if you are a just new to the faith, maybe, and again, just searching and trying to figure things out, wondering why we worship God in Christ, why faith is so important to us, or maybe you're somebody who's been a Christian forever and are more mature in your faith than I am. No matter where you land in that spectrum, get in the chat. I encourage you. Would love to hear from you. I want to get your opinion on things. I want you to share that. Tell me what you agree with. Tell me what you disagree with. What am I doing right or wrong? What is it that we're discussing that maybe you have a unique perspective or opinion about? Maybe you've got a different point of view that might add something to whatever it is we're discussing. No matter what, I want to hear from you. And we're a small enough community that if you write it in that chat, I'm going to read it and I'm going to respond to it. So there you go. And with that said, Let's get the show started. I've already said that actually. When I went into my intro, Alias is here, said be right back. All right, bye, Alias. Oh, Alex Moore, Frito chip crunching noises. Oof. Matt felt like Fritos and chili and cheese. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites. Matt Felty's here. What's going on? Dresden's here from across the pond. Lucifer. Old Lucy here. Lost my pet spider Cthulhu. I'm sorry. I hope you find him. Because I don't like bugs. And one thing spiders control are bugs. Bugs. Steve's here. What's going on, sir? Mr. Hawley in the chat. Texan Italian as well. Hey, y'all. How's it going, sir? And Matt felt the honest question on your intro. You state basically Christian from birth. Any particular reason? When did you feel the grasp of your salvation and calling? Different ages and times. Yes. So I like that question, Matt. I think that's good. It's always good question whenever you're talking to somebody to kind of get when we're talking about faith. It's a cool to hear what everybody's background is. So hold on first. F's in the chat for Cthulhu, Spider Familiar, and friend. May you be remembered as long as however you need to be remembered. You were a creature of God, here to serve what purpose, and now you are gone. First F from Manuel Osorio. What's going on, sir? Matt, all right, so grew up in a church that no longer exists, but has merged in with actually a church I've been attending. The pastor that I grew up under is his son is actually one of the pastors that I showcased on here a few weeks ago, E.L. Jones. And in fact, E.L. Jones and I were kids in Sunday school together, separated by 2 years. So we weren't always in class together. However, my parents brought me there from the beginning. My dad was born and I think originally baptized Lutheran in a Lutheran church. I don't know exactly his um, his way to becoming non-denominational, but that's what he was. My mom was raised Catholic and converted when she married my dad, and she found that going to church at a Protestant church was enlightening to her in many ways. That there were things that she learned that she had no idea of when in her Catholic upbringing. Now, my mom wasn't just a Catholic who went to mass. She also went to Catholic Jesuit Catholic schools, and so there was some semblance of catechizing to her. But she is very vehemently Protestant now, to the point where I'd have to tell her, I was like, hey, he's off. Catholics are good people, and they do generally believe the same thing that Protestants do, with just some differences. They're still brothers and sisters in Christ. So anyway, faith was very important to both of them. So I was brought there since a baby, and I grew up in the church, grew up in Sunday school, grew up seeing all that stuff. Now it's different, and those who maybe were raised in church will be saying you kind of just grow up just hearing it. So it's something that you always know, that's always there. And I remember at nights, when I was a kid, I would sing songs, which I don't do here. I would sing songs that I would just make it up on the fly, just sing songs about how much I love God. But I didn't the weight of belief didn't really hit me until I was a little bit older. The decision to get baptized came in high school, early in high school. And at this point we were going to a different church, a church that I did not actually have a pleasant experience at. However, we did have in our Sunday school a debate over evolution. And in my evolution, or I had a take on evolution as um, that was different from what a lot of people did. We were going to have a debate about it. So we were talking about it, and I was basically reasoning my way through how evolution could be valid and still in some, but not in necessarily the way Darwin explained it. And through that, and showing that even when faced with doubt or confliction or whatever, that I was still able to hold on to my beliefs and the way I articulated it. My Sunday school teacher convinced me, kind of encouraged me that this was the time to get baptized, and I felt like it was. I mean, like I said, I'd never doubted at all, and so I got baptized at 14, and it was it was just I remember it. And I remember a lot of things about it. It still didn't hit me. And I've told this story before a couple of times. It was right before I was already enlisted in the army. I would be going to basic training in in a few months. It was the summer before 9/11. This was August, I think. So it was very close, very close to 9/11, but it hadn't happened yet. I was going out to visit some friends down at the coast of Virginia, give them kind of like one last visit to hang out with them, and before I went off to the army. And what happened was I took kind of a back road down there. My car, I was borrowing my dad's car at the time, uh, and it started to overheat and broke down. So it broke down in a county somewhere in between my house and the coast, in an area that I wasn't familiar with. And this was before I had a cell phone, but this is before GPS. This is before a lot of that stuff. Um, so I got out, and I don't think I even had a cell phone signal, so I was very frustrated. I just went to the closest house, which wasn't actually that far. Um, when I got there, I asked, "Hey, can I use your guys' phone? I broke down. Is there anything way you can help me and kind of tell me where I'm at so I can call my dad and he can come help out?" And they did. And my dad was like, "Yeah, let me get some tools. I'll come down there and we'll get the car back." And so, wow, before they had it on the very expensive cars. I mean, we're talking like this is 2001. This is June of 2001. So GPS was out there. It was very, but it a lot of most people didn't have it. You know, you hear about hearing songs from Nelly where he was rapping about having the navigator with the navigation system in it. So everything, and it was still, again, if you were out in the sticks, which is where I grew up and where I was, you weren't getting anything. So couldn't get a cell signal. But anyway, so called my dad, and while we were sitting there, we were just conversating because that's how it is out in the country. Everybody talks. So while we were talking, the subject of God came up, and they pressed it. It was two older gentlemen and their their families. I think it was a father and his son and their families, like they lived next door to each other. Um, and yes, Lucy, it would be. Anyway, while we were sitting there talking, they brought up God, and I was like, "Yeah, are you a believer?" "Yeah, I'm a believer. Been baptized and all that stuff." And they go, and it really came down to, how seriously do you take it? I'm like, "Yeah, I believe in everything." They do. How seriously do you take it? And they started asking very pointed questions, and it occurred to me at that point that I hadn't taken it that seriously. I was kind of keeping my it wasn't something that I really was cognizant of, wasn't aware of it. And so it didn't guide a whole lot of my decisions at times, especially being a teenager. Being a teenager in your early 20s is when you can eat God the most. Um, at least it feels that way. But I realized I needed to take things more seriously. And we had a long conversation with that. And I got a lot closer. And I think that's the time where I really felt like I understood better what Christianity was all about. And so if you want to talk to me when I became um grasp my salvation, was then. Really grasp it, really understand it, really feel the weight of um really feel the weight of what God's gift of salvation is. And that's when it stuck with me. And they exchanged letters, exchanged addresses with me. So I would write. I was going to write to them, and I did write to them when I got to basic training because didn't have access to computers or any of that stuff. All communication was basically a phone call, which I was going to use what limited phone time I had to call home and talk to my parents, um, and or letters. So I wrote them a couple of times. It was nice. I wish I remembered exactly where I broke down. I wish I could come talk to those folks again. I want to tell them. I would love to express to them exactly the impact they had on me. And maybe it was just a conversation that they made in passing with some kid who broke down on the road. And they got to see that, oh yeah, he did go in the army. And it's great to see that he probably went out and hopefully was okay when he, because everybody's going to Afghanistan and Iraq. That I could tell them and sit them down and say, more important than all that, you guys, strangers, made me stop, pause, and take the time to consider this thing that this faith that I'd had all my life and really consolidate it and pay attention to it. And then, joined the army, and that was good. I kept time. We had a Bible group that would meet after lights out sometimes when we could get away with it. There was a handful of guys who were really could believe, you know, fervent believers. We would read Bible verses to each other, not unlike this. um, and my best friend at the time, who I met while I was there, he was so knowledgeable for a 20-year-old, so knowledgeable on the Bible, had such a great mind and attitude for faith and what was the right thing and the wrong thing. And this guy, look, he was the women that were around. And I'll say this, the women obviously in the army were fawning over him. He had very much, if any of you guys remember Mel Gibson back in the 90s and how popular he was, uh that was very much how he behaved, and that was just a draw. And a lot of women thought he was attractive, but and were throwing themselves at him, and he was just like, I mean, he had begone thought down before begone thought was a thing. And I mean, um he kept his relationship with his girlfriend back home in Oregon very very seriously. He took it very seriously, and also the fact that sexual relations before marriage is a big deal. Your virginity is something to be cherished and understood, and and something to be faithful to. It's something that God gives you that you don't give away to anyone except for your spouse, and other things that went on. I was always floored with um, how well he handled that when there were all sorts of temptations going on, and it helped keep me a little more grounded as well. And in fact, because um, helicopter school at the time was done at Fort Eustis, Virginia, which is 45 minutes from my house growing up. And so once we got to the point where we had weekend passes and we can go off base, he and I would hang out at my house. And so we were, hanging out with my girlfriend. We would go watch movies, Black Hawk Down, and We Were Soldiers were both in theaters at the time. We went and watched both of those. Um, Hung out with some of my friends, and they were all like any of my friends that were women. Afterwards, it's like, who is your friend? Hook me up with him. And it was like, dude, it's like you don't. All of them were like that. So as you could tell, one of the biggest impressions had to do with women because that was what was on my mind most of the time when I was that age. But again, he went on to have a very good career in the army. We did lose touch around the same time I was getting home from Iraq, and I haven't been able to connect with him since. I don't know what happened to him. That's another gentleman I would really like to connect with one day and really explain to him, like, people who have given me influences in my life that that I've just lost touch with. Things that people who I would love to go just say thank you. The good news is the last, I guess, real trip with things um, was with when my son was born, my first kid, and being a dad and really understanding much more, putting much more into uh, much better perspective God's love for us as his kids, as his children, as his creations. The reason why it just and how why he treats us the way that he treats us, and the things that the lessons, and what is good and what is right and what is wrong and what do you desire. We are made in his image. So much of what we are, that's the things that are good in us, are things that are reflections of him, or just are like after images of him, feelings that he would feel. At least that's my thought on things. And so when I'm talking to my kids, I'm pondering how much I care about them, I understand why God does and has done made the sacrifices he's made. Um, Even though my kids, though, as much as I love them through and through, aren't perfect. They make mistakes. They have parts of their personality that are that might be a bit troubling. They're going to sin. They already have. But I care about them. I don't care. I can look past it, um, because they are beautiful creations, and that I think that so far that has been the last real, um, the last real step that I've taken. Maybe when I became a deacon, um, maybe the idea of taking it more in a leadership perspective, but the real from a faith perspective, that was the big step, and I felt like so much coalesced at that point, and it was wonderful. It was a wonderful thing, and I thank you for asking that question. I love talking about that, because it helps me better appreciate and better be thankful for the things that have happened in my life that have been blessings. Talk about blessings in Psalms. I was given those opportunities when I left the church that I was baptized in, because it was a toxic environment. I didn't want anything to do with church. And a friend of mine, I didn't have a whole lot of friends. A friend of mine is the one who said, "Hey, I'm in a Bible study um, that meets, I think, every Tuesday nights at one of their houses. Like to just show up." And so I showed up, and I ended up becoming great friends with the newly married husband and wife, who were a year older than me, who were hosting it. And when and I didn't and that was as close as I really got to going to church. That and they went to the church, and I started attending there briefly because I was getting ready to deploy. Um, Started attending there briefly, um, before I deployed. It's the church that I ended up going back to, and becoming a deacon at, and my kids were raised in. That I've had recent, the one that I've had recent, not necessarily a falling out with, but discord. I am still great friends with that guy. When I lost touch with him. I reconnected when decided we were moving back into town, when me and my wife were buying a house in this area. And I wanted my son, because that's all we had at the time. I wanted my son to be raised in a church. I realized that there was things that I couldn't do. I was not equipped to educate my son fully and he needed to be raised in a church like I did. I reached out to him, and he said, "Come on, sit next to us." And it's been it's those things get put in, and different people played different parts in that, and God put all that stuff together. And it was a great thing. It's a great thing. So never underestimate the role you can play in God's plans for bringing just one person, and maybe their kids, and maybe their wife, which is how it happened for me, bringing them to God. Even if it's just having a conversation with them because they broke down in front of your house, or even because um, they're at work with you, maybe serving in the military with you. Maybe it's or just because they showed up after a bad church experience to your Bible study. You don't know what impact you're going to have or what you might gain along the way. The gentleman with the Bible study, we he would count me as a friend of his, and that's it's always good to have friends that you know you can count on. Good question. Manuel said, I still think evolution is valid. It is true. God does shape everything, and that's why the DNA helix is so complex. Like everything is so complex. why everything is so complex. That's why I try to avoid the old Earth versus young Earth debates, because to me it's like I don't care. It got made. We got made. The time it took, the time that God decided to take uh, in creating all of it, doesn't matter to me one bit, because I'm here, right? Because that's how we got here. Um, Alex Moore, wow, before GPS, dang, before 9/11. Yeah, we're old. We're old, Alex. Yeah, and Lucy, like, even when we covered all that. Alex, we'll see you when you come back. Be back later. Texan Italian, I think evolution was conflated from adaptation. I have leaned vertical versus horizontal evolution. Yeah, I think, look, it's supposedly the biggest gotcha against God, but to me, it's just, we bringing Dr. Von Mancha on here will show you does more to prove God than it does to disprove it. When you look at genetics, adaptation, and that kind of stuff. Matt Felty said, I recall the strip story and conversation. So that was the first time of confirmation of your calling election, I guess. I don't I don't know. I don't understand some of the concepts of these words, but all I can really do is tell you how I felt and what it meant for me and how it affected me. The background journey and baptism info was new. Appreciate it, brother. Hey, all you gotta do is ask. All I can say is no, I don't want to share that with you. It's the worst. Lucy said, ironically, it was likes of Supernatural TV show that got me back into Christianity. You're not the first person to say that, I feel like. I feel like I've heard that before. Somebody on Nick's show, maybe. Or maybe somebody in the wild wilderness that is real life. Can't remember. Emmanuel said, don't worry, you'll find them on YouTube. They'll see you. Maybe older folks might not be. I don't know if those the dudes who helped me out, I don't know if either of them are alive. Hell, I don't even know if my buddy in the Army is still alive, though. He's only a year older than me. So, I mean, gosh, I'm getting old. Matt said, yeah, being in DC with the old guard for a couple of years was tempting on the lady front for sure. No other real soldiers in the Capitol. That's true. Look, and there is no getting around it. Ladies really go for a man in uniform. Just is what it is. Carl, how's it going, sir? Hopefully your sinuses are holding up with the abrupt changes in the weather. That's all me and Carl talk about is the weather in Virginia. It feels like. Oh, and Governor Youngkin standing with Abbott. We're not going to get into that topic tonight. We're already a half hour in. Lucy says, playing the video game Smite whilst listening. of all the characters, not to add, it would be nice to play Archangel Michael in this game. I think I've played Smite. Just bought Baldur's Gate 3. I'm checking that out. So, Matt Felsley with an amen, and one John is a good study for the terms I was using. Well, when we get Keith Foskey on here to talk about Calvinism, because election's a big deal with them, I'm sure we'll be using some of those terms as well. Blaine's escape corner is here. Weather. There you go. Blaine, how's it going? Hope your your wife's birthday was great, and y'all had a great time. Certainly, she is a saint for putting up with you, much like mine is a saint for putting up with me. First Peter, you're bad. That part of that when you're at the tail end of the Bibles or of the Bible, all that stuff runs together pretty fast. So those are like, a few pages long. Those books are only a few pages long versus where we're at now with 150 Psalms. And right now we're at 67 and 68 tonight, and that's what we're going to be reading from. So learn the Bible in 30 days. Yeah, whatever. It's no corners are getting cut here. There we go. Thad demands that I never really left just Rome some, but I did like the show Lucifer. There were cringe moments, but some really good, like the death of Trisha Helfer character. That was me. Never really left. I left the church. I never left my faith. I always was in the faith. But I had lost my faith in the church to properly, I guess, look after me and be a place for me to belong to. I'd lost that. And it wasn't until I got to my friend's church where I realized not all churches were like that. Not all churches are toxic. Some are good folks, honest, God-loving people seeking Christ and ready to help their fellow man and fellow brothers and sisters in Christ at a moment's notice. And those folks there have had my back many a time through a lot of challenges and a lot of struggles. And hopefully I've been able to be there for them as well. So anyway, all right. Almost done with book 2 slams. Matt felt you could spend a day examining the first paragraph in 1 Peter. Maybe we will. We'll see. Lucy said the show of Lucifer was terrible. Read by the read this correctly since you wrote it. The show Lucifer was terrible. Read the comic by Neil Gaiman. He definitely knows his John Milton by the way he wrote him. Man, Milton was good. I really enjoyed reading Paradise Lost. All right. Oh, an invocation and a doxology. This is very short. Let's see. This is 67. To the chief musician on stringed instruments. Looks back at his guitar, which he will not be playing. A psalm, a song. God, be merciful to us and bless us and cause his face to shine upon us. Selah. That your way may be known on earth, your salvation among all nations. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. Oh, let the nations be glad and sing for joy. For you shall judge the people righteously and govern the nations on the earth. Selah. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. Then the earth shall yield her increase. God, our own God, shall bless us. God shall bless us, and all the ends of the earth shall fear him. That's a good one. Lucy says, have you read Paradise Regained? I'm in the middle of Paradise Regained. I didn't know it existed until Nick Rekieta told me. Very good. Not I mean, very good because of content. It's not as far as writing style, it's not as I don't think it's as good as Paradise Lost, but and it's much shorter, but still good. Matt Felty said Milton shaped the perception of the fall of Satan became out of order in many sermons, as I understand it biblically. Um, yeah, there's some there's definitely some artistic licensing uh that Milton took when he wrote it, but I thought it was a good attempt to kind of express one man's idea of how it may have happened, and I'd be interested to see God's opinion on how he takes kind of in essence fan fiction in that because Milton I don't think tries to pass this off as gospel. He just look this is this is kind of how it happened how I envision the fall occurring in my mind. So he has some really good quotes in there though. Part of it about dangerous churches. Anyway, um, this psalm is is really a prayer, and it's interesting because this is it doesn't say who wrote this, doesn't say it's David, but this does happen before Christ. Obviously, Psalms were written before Christ. 1 second, guys. Sorry, my liquid refreshment, my tea was out of reach. I needed to go get it. This is a time where really God's chosen people are the Israelites. But what we see this is talking about salvation reaching out to everyone. This is a very, very in tune with the gospel psalm. When you talk about the overarching theme, the concept of salvation, and the fact that whoever is seeing this sees things in a similar perspective as me, and all and how I think we should all be. We want God's message. We want God's salvation to reach everyone. We want everyone to accept him into their heart and into their soul. We want everybody to follow him. We want all the nations to praise him. This is a prayer that that we win and we don't have casualties along the way or the casualties are mitigated. Manuel says almost as like the Bible is consistent. Wow, yeah, no, right? But there's so many people who tell you it's not. This is consistent. This is prophetic almost. And it's be merciful to us and bless us and cause his face to shine upon us, that your way may be known on earth, your salvation among all nations. That means the Canaanites, the Persians, the Philistines, the Egyptians, the Greeks. I don't know if the Greeks were in the picture yet. Maybe the Greeks, but whoever they knew of, the Edomites, all nations, nations beyond that they weren't even aware of. All nations, not just the Israelites, Gentiles as well. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. Oh, let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you shall judge the people righteously and govern the nations on earth. Again, not limiting this to the Israelites. Read Israelites, Hebrews, Jews, however you want to read it. Chosen people, the tribes, doesn't matter. It's not just them. Salvation among your salvation, God's salvation among all nations. You shall judge the people righteously, not just the Israelites. And govern the nations on the earth, all of them. All of them. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. Then the earth shall yield her increase. God, our own God, shall bless us. God shall bless us, and all the ends of the earth shall fear him. Would that we actually would see a day like that. Nothing. Sorry. Can't say nothing. But I can't imagine something making me happier. Not even the joy of having my own kids would be happier than seeing the salvation of people across all nations as a whole, culturally and societally, where we reject society, rejects sin, makes it taboo, ostracizes it, pushes it away. Instead of what we see, which is embracing it and reveling in it and treating righteousness as a punchline, an object of scorn. I read an article today about Jim Harbaugh leaving Michigan. Sometimes I have this app for Fansided, which is a very poorly poorly proofread and sometimes hastily written articles. More sometimes more to just throw red meat at fans than anything else. It was part of it was Slap the Sign was the fan-sided site. That's for the Notre Dame fans. Mostly Notre Dame football. Notre Dame fans. And the writer on that, who apparently also writes for the Huskers as well, Nebraska, University of Nebraska, was talking about how Jim Harbaugh was a coward and he was running away from sanctions. And that's all he focused on. Or it also seemed like all he would focus on. And I wrote that as a, Notre Dame's a faith-based school. I'm not Catholic, but it's still a it's still a Christian university. And so I was like, look, there's more to this than that. And it's beneath a school which is supposed to have higher standards for you to write articles like this. It's terrible. I said, you sound like a Buckeyes fan. And we went back and forth a couple of times. And I basically said, look, again, you're being dishonest. And maybe that's okay with you, but I think it's a poor reflection on the school for you to attach their name on it. He said, well, I just looked through your timeline and I'm glad, and it's good that you, it's a good thing you don't get to decide what's associated with the school and what isn't. So then I drifted over to his timeline and it's all political. It's all political. It's not, there's no faith. There's no faith in there. There's no talk of God. And yet he's writing for one of the preeminent Catholic schools in the United States. Imagine that. Where was I going with this? Oh, how they treat how the world treats us. How dare you? I know what he did. He one of the last things I reposted or quote tweeted had to do with a lady who was saying that 13 years ago she was 18 and she had an abortion and she was so happy she had it because if she didn't, if she didn't, um, she wouldn't have been able to run for Congress so that she could promote more having more abortions. And it was just like, wow. And so I commented about it. It's like you are so dead inside that you would sacrifice a child to for political career and political position. And I know he read that, and I knew that's exactly that he stopped right there. He probably wouldn't have liked anything else I shared. But but that's what it is. That's probably where he got to him, like, oh, this guy supports is pro life. This guy supports unborn kids. This guy's a mess. And you could read it from tracking kind of things he said. The world does not the world in many ways, and unfortunately so much of Western culture rejects the concepts that founded Western culture and made it great. It's amazing. You bite the hand that feeds you and you don't even realize it. Lucy says the only ones who say the Bible is not consistent are the people who have never read and studied it. Yeah, right. Or who honestly read it and studied it. You're absolutely correct. Alias, what'd you miss? The first psalm we read tonight, which was 67, and a whole lot of other stuff. 50 minutes of content, Alias. Lucy says all colleges are dens of Satan. Unfortunately, there's too much truth in that. And they say that the worship of Moloch is dead, shaking my head. It's not. It's not. People don't realize it, or maybe they do and they don't care. But we've got a couple of clips have been circulating recently of people women confronted about abortions, and they're like, yeah. And the language they use is shocking. It's difficult. Yeah, Notre Dame probably doesn't care. I heard the Pope said the Ten Commandments aren't that important, and the Pope's Jesuit, and Notre Dame is a Jesuit school. And you probably get a mix of, and actually, in fact, I know that there is a mix of more progressive Catholics and conservative Catholics there. So you probably have a mix of people who do care and who don't care. But the but you know, as much as the Pope says a lot of stupid things, in my opinion, a lot of stupid things. The one thing that the Catholics have been very adamant about is pro life. They've been one of the church in general have been not necessarily Catholics, but because look at a lot of Catholic politicians, but the church has been a very steadfast and staunch leader of for pro-life causes. Not the only leader, but a big leader, because they are the biggest voice worldwide. And there are and kind of and as in line with some of the things that the Pope has said, there have been a lot of African and Asian uh, Catholic groups that have been putting a lot of pressure recently on the Pope for what they do not agree with in his opinions. Had the man, it's Jesuits' equal liberation theology. Jesuits equal tricks and are not to be trusted, which is sad because the Jesuits and their foundation, and up until the last couple of centuries, have been some of the most based um, Christians in the, I guess, proliferation of the faith, true faith. Oh, Emmanuel, they know their way. They definitely know their way. So, yeah, the world doesn't accept it. Would it be great to see where it would, where maybe you're not to say that you're ostracized for your sin, or you're ostracized for your sin, but people are not going to just tolerate it, accept it, and let you uh, go living that sin unchallenged, where you're constantly being coached and counseled on improving yourself and living a path, or walking a path closer to God. Steve said, I don't understand any religion that goes against stuff in the Bible. It's like, where do you get that? Oh, the Steve, the mental gymnastics. And look, I don't know how much of the conversation, how many conversations you caught last time you were down here with us about our recent struggles at the church we left. Me and your brother and our other buddy. Uh, but oh man, the things that are out, the ideas that are out there are pretty incredible. And the most dangerous one, I think, to folks like ourselves, or in our part of our place in American culture, is deconstruction, where it's basically you're deconstructing your faith and building it back to be more in line with what it basically means is deconstruct it either into full on atheism, which is where it leads most people, because you just start getting rid of things in the Bible, or interpreting concept in the Bible that take you away from God to the point where you don't believe anymore. What the rest of them build back out is something that's more a political movement than anything else. And that's a sad thing. But it's basically for people who say, who are either actually mistreated by the church that they were in, which happens. It's a legitimate thing that happens. Churches will fail you sometimes, in varying degrees, that can hurt you. Um, and then other people who go, people said things I do aren't good, and I didn't like that, and it hurt my feelings, and so the church failed me. And that's not actually what happened. That's not actually how that works, right? Um, but it can lead people into poor places. But deconstruction, and like I said, there's it's amazing. Like I said, when people want God to be okay with the things that they do, that they know that he won't be, how they'll go back and try to reason their opinion out of the Bible, or reason their opinion into what the word says. And so, oh no, it actually says this, or oh no, this is actually the most recent one I've seen is literally out and out um anger at Jesus for the parable of the 10 virgins and the oil. It's mind-boggling. I said, yes, you've heard. Okay. Rabbanus said, really, the Pope said that one of the foundations of the Old Testament is invalid. It's like saying, well, not all the Bible is important. And I will say this, there's some things that have been attributed to the Pope that the Pope hasn't said, but some of the, like I said, Don't focus on what the Pope says. Don't worry about what the Pope says. He's just understand that he seems to be in serious error, and it's better if we go somewhere else to listen to um, perspective on the Bible. So I can't. He has said some pretty questionable stuff, and it's difficult, but there's so much out there that's difficult to know. Emmanuel, it's like a woman's Bible where they hold on. It's like the woman's Bible where they take out all the saying of God, saying he or him, and trying to make him into a woman. Oh yeah, yeah. The God of many genders is the one that we heard at the in one of the ELCA churches. It's just yeah. I mean, said the parable of the wife makes a good strong argument for polygamy. It's a joke. It's a joke. Uh, like I said, all you got to do is read about King David and King Solomon, and you realize, or just read about Abraham, read about Jacob. You realize it's God started us off with a monogamous relationship for a reason. Start adding partners in there, nothing but drama ensues. Nothing but drama ensues. And when you've got drama, you got trouble. So, Nico, I don't get. There's a long story. It's a long story. You talk to pot. It goes. There's. It's a long story. That's as far as I'm really getting to work. Going to work. Listen to Jesus, not a man in a funny white robe. Who is Brandon Robertson? Is that Pat Robertson's kid? Oh, that guy. Oh yeah. Oh, Thad. He is awful. He is. He is. Yeah, the gay priest. Oh my goodness, he is the worst. That guy, and going to basically the TikTok priest. I went to seminary. Believe everything I say. How can a wolf be so effeminate? Anyway, we want that to change, right? We're gonna wrap all this stuff up. What we were talking about with the Pope, what we talking about with dummies writing articles. We talk about what we see in the world. We talk about women who are happy for their abortions. We talk about men who who involve themselves into multiple relationships without seeming any regard um, for what the sanctity of a relationship is. We see all that stuff going on. It's such a rejection of what God designed for us. It's not good. Awesome job about Alex. That he gets people who just want to listen, be the unfortunate thing is he's not making people better, but the people who listen to him are people who only want to listen to their own, to see their own, hear their own beliefs verified. Fruit Bishop. But we want to see that kind of behavior to be shunned. To be taboo. Where people I want to be better. I'm doing this, but I need to fix that. Because God wants me to. And I love him. And I love what he's done for me. So I need to be better. To chase this as a nation, as a world. as a as humanity, take that seriously. That's what this prayer is really reaching out for. And that salvation's not limited just to the descendants of Abraham, the descendants of Jacob, but to everyone, the descendants of Adam. And that's really that there's so much beautiful and there's so much beauty in this psalm, and it's so short. It's so to the point that you can't help but love it. I said short psalms can hit hard. Here we go. Yes. There's a lot of nicknames for him out there, by the way, guys. All right. Psalm 68. The glory of God and his goodness to Israel, to the chief musician, a psalm of David, a song. Let God arise. Let his enemies be scattered. Let those also who hate him flee before him. Smoke is driven away, so drive them away, as wax melts before the fire. So let the wicked perish at the presence of God. But let the righteous be glad. Let them rejoice before God. Yes, let them rejoice exceedingly. Sing to God. Sing to God. Sing praises to his name. Extol him who rides on the clouds by his name. Yeah, and rejoice before him. A father of the fatherless, a defender of widows, is God in his holy habitation. God sets the solitary in families. He brings out those who are bound into prosperity, but the rebellious dwell in a dry land. O God, when you went out before your people, when you marched through the wilderness, Selah, the earth shook. The heavens also dropped rain at the presence of God. Sinai itself was moved at the presence of God, the God of Israel. You, O God, sent a plentiful rain, whereby you confirmed your inheritance when it was weary. Your congregation dwelt in it. You, O God, provided from your goodness for the poor. The Lord gave the word. Great was the company of those who proclaimed it. Kings of armies flee. They flee. And she who remains at home divides the spoil. Though you lie down among the sheepfolds, you will be like the wings of a dove covered with silver, and her feathers with yellow gold. When the Almighty scattered kings in it, it was white as snow in Zalman, or Zaman, if it's supposed to be pronounced like salmon. A mountain of God is the mountain of Bashan. A mountain of many peaks is the mountain of Bashan. Why do you fume with envy, you mountains of many peaks? This is the Lord, which God desires to dwell in. Yes, the Lord will dwell in it forever. The chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of thousands. The Lord is among them as in Sinai, in the holy place. You have ascended on high. You have led captivity captive. You have received gifts among men, even from the rebellious, that the Lord might dwell there. Blessed be the Lord, who daily loads us with benefits, the God of our salvation. Salah. Our God is the God of salvation, and to God the Lord escapes from death. Didn't understand how that was written. But God will wound the head of his enemies, the hairy scalp of the one who still goes on in his trespasses. The Lord said, I will bring back from Bashan. I will bring them back from the depths of the sea, that your foot may crush them in blood, and the tongues of your dogs may have their portion from your enemies. They have seen your procession, O God, the procession of my God, my King, into this sanctuary. The singers went before, the players on instruments followed after. Among them were the maidens playing timbrels. Bless God in the congregations, the Lord from the fountain of Israel. There is little Benjamin, their leader, the princes of Judah and their company, the princes of Zebulun and the princes of Naphtali. Your God has commanded your strength. Strengthen, O God, what you have done for us because of your temple at Jerusalem. Kings will bring presents to you. Rebuke the beasts of the reeds, the herd of bulls with the calves of the peoples, till everyone submits himself with pieces of silver. Scatter the peoples who delight in war. Envoys will come out of Egypt. Ethiopia will quickly stretch out her hands to God. Sing to God, you kingdoms of the earth. Oh, sing praises to the Lord, Selah, to him who rides on the heavens of heavens, the heaven of heavens, which were of old. Indeed, he sends out his voice, a mighty voice, ascribes strength to God. His excellence is over Israel, and his strength is in the clouds. O God, you are more awesome than your holy places. The God of Israel is he who gives strength and power to his people. Blessed be God. Woo! That's a long one. That was a long one. Let's go through this. Let God arise, let his enemies be scattered, let those who hate him flee before him. The smoke is driven away, so drive them away as wax melts before the fire. So let the wicked perish at the presence of God. But let the righteous be glad, but let them rejoice before God. Let them rejoice exceedingly. We're going to see similar passages like this one throughout this psalm. But hey, let God come up and scatter those who are enemies of what he stands for, of what order he has created. The people who stand against what we were talking about in the last psalm, scatter them. And if you hate what he stands for, flee, run away. As smoke is driven away, so drive them away. As wax melts before the fire. Yes. Lucy says, I love it when David gives out these descriptions of God. Awesome God indeed. I like a lot of the imagery. As smoke driven away, something we've heard before. It's not new. As wax melts before the fire. I like that one. Let the righteous be glad. Let them rejoice before God. Let them rejoice exceedingly. There we go. Enemies scattered, flee, punished, etc. The righteous stay and bask in his glow. And sing praises in his name. Extol him who rides in the clouds by his name, Yah, which is by the footnote says Lord, like almost like a slang or a nickname, Yah, and rejoice before him. A father to the fatherless, a defender of women is God in his holy habitation. Yeah, go back and look. Looking out for widows, looking out for the orphans. Those are things that God commands us to do because those are things that he wants done. He thinks it's good. God sets the solitary in families. He brings out those who are bound into prosperity, but the rebellious dwell in a dry land. Again, good imagery here. Rebellious, a dry land, thirst, heat, exposure. Great. Oh God, when you went out before your people, when you marched through the wilderness, talking about how the earth shook, the heavens dropped rain, Sinai moved, plentiful rain, all that stuff. Provided your goodness for the poor. We are poor. We're poor in spirit. We are poor in our behavior. We are sinful. God provided goodness for us anyway. And see how powerful he is by the signs that we saw. A pillar in the sky, the shaking of the earth, manna from heaven. Here you are, Jenny. How's it going? The Lord gave the word. Great was the company of those who proclaim it. Kings of armies flee, they flee, and she who remains at home divides the spoils. Footnote on that says plunder. Where were we at? Be like the wings of a dove covered with silver, and her feathers with yellow gold. When the Almighty scattered kings in it, if it was as white as snow and salmon. I don't know what salmon is. Understand a lot of the imagery here. I'm assuming it has something. Assuming it has something going on. Something that I'm missing. Sheepfold and all that. Steve said, I love how we can use this in our lives. It just doesn't apply to back then. God's amazing grace. That's why I'm saying, and Steve, this is something I talk about in the Old Testament all the time. The thing I like about the Old Testament, why I find the Old Testament so important, is not just that it points towards the Gospels, right? It prophesizes all this. The people that we read about, similar to disciples, but the disciples are following Christ, right? And Paul is this just very zealous, very authoritative person. We don't get it. I don't think we get it as much out of him. Get a lot of it out of Peter, but when you look in the Old Testament, you look at Joseph, you look at David, you look at Solomon, you look at Hezekiah, you look at Moses and Abraham, you look at um, Daniel, Jonah. You see people, some of them good, some of them bad. You see real people handling real issues and obstacles, and some of them trust in God and succeed, and others do not and fall into sin or just reject him entirely. But the things that they go through and the things that they're confronted with, we can relate to that, maybe not on as grand of a scheme as Saul and King Saul and his problems, but the fact that, you know, we're not responsible with the things we have. And sometimes we let sin, the when we let sin in, we compromise with God. And the things that he does as a leader, we do as followers. I love it. But again, and goes back to something that Matthew was listening to. Um, I was raised on Old Testament stories though, too. I have and I still have it. And I started trying to read this to my kids when they were young, when they were much younger. And I'm like, man, these are some heavy stories because they don't pull any punches. They really, when the flood happens, it's talking about the wicked people and God sent a flood and it killed them. And it's got it's illustrated. So you see people like drowning in the water and everything. It's heavy. Like I was reading this at like 6, 7 years old. Whoo, whoo. And Thad said it's a shame about how so many evangelicals just ignore the Old Testament. They think about Jesus, but never the Father. Well, yes, evangelicals and a lot of Catholics too, who don't want to focus on the commandments. I find that a lot of times that's just something that those two seem to share together. I don't know about the other groups. Here's the part I love. We forget that Christ was there in the beginning, and he was with them in the wilderness with Abraham as well. Before Abraham was, I am. One of these days, once when we're done with the Bible, one of the things I also want to get into is the theories behind Melchizedek in Genesis. Christ being the fourth figure in the furnace with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So much when we talk about the angel of the Lord, many people believe that's a reference to Jesus. That's a name for Jesus. So All right, let's get through this because I'm gonna wrap it up. Like I said, I'm tired, but but this is the last stream for the week, so I'm not going to rush through it. You guys deserve better. Let's see. The Lord gave his word. Great was the company of those who proclaimed it. The king's armies flee, they flee. Then she who remained. Oh, I already part of that part. A mountain of God is the mountain of Bashan. A mountain of many peaks is the mountain of Bashan. Why do you fume with envy, you mountains of many peaks? This is the mountain which God desires to dwell in. Yes, the Lord will dwell in it forever. I don't understand this passage very much. So I don't understand that one. Again, more imagery that I think is just lost on me. I don't get it. Steve said I saw something about the something. I think there was a typo there, Steve. I saw something about this saying we have more than one God because it says gods, but they forget about the Trinity. Yes. Since the beginning of our time. Yeah. Well, not only that, but when you'll hear some Jews will bring it up, or some Jewish people will bring it up and say that then these are the more liberal ones, which are like uh uh some of the Bible. Some Jewish people will say it's polytheistic. the uh um, crap, what is the why am I having this brain fart right now? Anyway, the Jewish people are polytheistic. In the Bible, they are when they're sinning, because a lot of times they're worshiping Baal, they're worshiping Moloch, they're pulling up and worshiping Asherah and these other false gods. That's why in the Bible, the 10 Commandments say there you will only worship God. Wouldn't have to put it there if there weren't demons pretending to be gods. If there wasn't concepts like um, Thad talks about with the divine council, or just people in general just wanting to worship gods for weird reasons. I don't know. Weirdos are out there, Steve. I can't explain it. It's why they're weird. The chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of thousands. The Lord is among them, as in Sinai, in the holy place. You have ascended on high. You have led captivity captive. You have received gifts among men, even from the rebellious, that the Lord might dwell there. Okay, I'm seeing a heavenly host. I'm seeing a high place. I'm seeing all this, but I don't know what it's driving at, other than God is in command of a heavenly host and does great deeds. Blessed be. This is a long. See, look, the short one I can easily grasp concept of. They make this one 35 verses, and all of a sudden I'm lost in the sauce. Blessed be the Lord who daily loads us with benefits, the God of our salvation. Selah. Our God is the God of salvation, and to God the Lord belong escapes from death. I don't understand that last line; doesn't make sense to me. But the first part's pretty good. Daily blessings are given daily. I know I can count them. I had one today. I'll talk to you all about it on Monday if I remember about it, because I had a point where I just needed to pray because there was a bad decision that I was considering making, and it wasn't like a scandalous one, but it was one that would be dumb. But I was very compelled to do it, and I needed to pause and pray. And God sent me a deliverer as I was praying. Sometimes He does answer quickly. God of our salvation, but God will wound the head of His enemies, the hairy scalp of the one who still goes on in his trespasses. The Lord said, I will bring back from Bashan. I will bring them back from the depths of the sea, that your foot may crush them in blood, and the tongues of your dogs may have their portion from your enemies. God is bringing justice, punishment, and accountability and responsibility. No, not going to a club. That's That's actually never been that's never been my thing. No, it had to do with me, um, running across somebody who I have a serious problem with and haven't been able to close that close that book by telling them exactly what I thought and having an opportunity to confront them, but knowing it would be stupid to do it. But that compulsion, because I am a confrontational person, I'm an argumentative person, and I'm a person who likes getting the last word in. I'm a person who hates when people in general get away with bad behavior and bad acts, especially when it involves me or my family or my friends. But it's better in most cases to let it go. It is difficult for me to let it go. I need help in that regard, and I pray for it daily, and I prayed for it, and I got a phone call from one of the best people I could have gotten a phone call from right as I was doing it, and not a person who calls me all that often. So, yeah, no, like I said, nothing scandalous, but something that would have left me looking like for without a better way to say it, look like an ass. They have seen your procession, O God, the procession of my God, my King, into the sanctuary. The singers went before, the players on instruments followed after. I think this is following something about time of worship. Um, that's correct, Matt. Henotheism. Um, this has something to do with order of worship and everything. Among them were the maidens playing timbrels. Bless God in the congregations, the Lord from the fountain of Israel. There's little Benjamin. Look at little Benjamin. Look at little Benjamin, the princes of Judah and their company of Zebulun. Um, um, yeah, this is just praise. This is behold the majesty and look at how great this is. Your God has commanded your strength. Strengthen, O God, what you have done for us, because of your temple at Jerusalem, kings will bring presents to you. They do it to Solomon. Rebuke the beasts of the reeds, the herd of the bulls with the calves of the peoples, till everyone submits himself with pieces of silver. Scatter the peoples who delight in war. Envoys will come out of Egypt. Ethiopia will quickly stretch out her hands to God. This actually happens. This is written by David. This actually happens right after he dies and Solomon takes over and starts building what we know as Solomon's temple, but Solomon's temple to the Lord in Jerusalem. All this stuff happens. David dies before Solomon becomes king. Just FYI. Sing to God, you kingdoms of the earth. Oh, sing praises to the Lord. Selah. To him who rides in the heaven on the heaven of heavens, which were of old. Indeed, he sends out his voice, a mighty voice. Ascribes strength to God. His excellence is over Israel, and his strength is in the clouds. God, you are more awesome than your holy places. The God of Israel is he who gives strength and power to his people. There is no, it's not a spoiler, Thad. We've already covered Kings and Chronicles. Thank you very much. Um, but yeah, more heaping praise on God, his great majesty, his great abilities, how awesome he is, the power that he just is. The divine. I know. No. Lucy, the Solomon built his temple with the help of demons. I think that there was some perversion in there afterwards because of Solomon's many wives and what they did afterwards. And the stuff definitely happens in with evil kings afterwards. And yes, slave labor from packs. That's a sensitive subject. But Jenny talked about earlier, see, right? Thanks for sharing. Good job taking the high road. It's difficult. And Thad saying there are times to let it go and times you shouldn't. It's hard to tell which you wish. Generally, the general rule of thumb is let it go. And it's tough. It's tough when you're a man with pride, like I have pride. Um, when you're a man and you're feeling that, or you're a person who enjoys justice, you hate people getting away with stuff. It's hard. It's hard when you can run your mouth, especially when you're in a good position and you can say, ha, it's hard, difficult. Doesn't excuse you to do it. Just because it's difficult does not make it okay for you to do it. Work on it. It's difficult for me. And I'm pretty sure most of y'all it probably wouldn't have been as difficult as y'all struggle in maybe other areas. I struggle here. This was a good day for that. Was God what I'm proud of myself for doing is when I was struggling with the decision because I knew I shouldn't, stopping and praying for God, and lo and behold, I am presented with an opportunity, someone to talk me through those thoughts. Good dude. All right, folks, that'll be it for the. That's gonna be it for the stream. Hour and a half. Woo! Spent making up for that lost time from last week or from yesterday. Oh, by the way, with that, I had plans that I was already not going to stream last night that had come up. We were gonna have a get together that I was gonna go to, a social gathering of sorts. And then son bumped his head at school, and we decided to take it easy with him that last night. So caring for one of the kiddos, and they're okay. Went back to school today. Goose egg's gone, and he's back to acing his studies. So there we go. Lucy said one of these days we should do 2 or 3 hour streams. When we do interviews, some of my interviews, one with Nick Ricada, the one with a couple of the ones with Eric Rollon, the one with Hans Feeney, probably with Keith Foskey, it'll be something similar. I've got a lot of 2 hour streams that I'm doing. What did I do when I have guests on? They just happen. Yeah, he's fine. He's fine, Nico. So Lucy, Nico, Jenny ELJ, glad you didn't miss the show. You got to come in and get some of the episode at the end. To Matt Felty, Thad the Man, Mr. Hawley, Emmanuel Osorio, Texan Italian, and then with the quips. Blaine's Escape Corner. Oh, I missed this part. He's streaming right now, I think. Jesuits kind of screwed the pooch with localizing the message to Japan. Yeah, they need to. Localization was something that the Jesuits failed at in general, I think. Alias. Alex Moore. Carl. Got a lot. This was an active show. Dresden. All you folks. Active chat. Great job tonight. Lots of discussions. Lots of what are Jesuits? They're a sect of the priesthood of Catholicism. Franciscan monks, Jesuit or Franciscan priest, Jesuit priest, and I forget what the other one is. I think there's at least one more. I think there may be others. I can't remember. Anyway, Matt Felty said, "Good evening, all. Keep prayers on my shoulder rehab, please. External rotation is impeded and painful, but progress in other areas. Hey, yes, prayers for your healing. Benedictine. Thank you, Dad. Benedictine. priests. Yeah, rehab's supposed to be painful. It's how you get better, but it's hard. So prayers on healing for that it gets better. Pain, joint pain, shoulder pain, back pain, foot pain, all that pain, hip pain, neck pain, all sucks. So, but for all you guys who are part of this chat, thanks for the dude. This has been a great chat tonight. It's been a nice, long, productive, and fulfilling um, conversation with you guys. I like it. I like it when it turns that way. Makes it's a reason why it's a lot longer. That's awesome. You guys help make that type of content. The reason this content is that long is because you ask questions like Matt did at the beginning. You'll give feedback. You'll give me something to play off of and offer unique and interesting insights or information like like helping me out with the Benedictine thing or talking about different perspectives on things. Awesome. Awesome. And I can't thank you guys enough for your input. I welcome that. And let that be a lesson to all you folks who are listening and are choosing not to be in the chat. Just kidding. I'd love you to be in the chat, but it's fine. You might not be able to. You might just not want to. But I'm just glad you're finding content that you love to come back to every night, night in and night out. You're still coming back, and awesome. To everybody catching me on replay, sorry that you didn't get to catch me live. Thank you for watching. And hopefully you'll get to catch me live sometime soon. I'll see you then. In the meantime, everybody, have a great weekend. Be safe, be restful, be productive. Maybe watch some sports. Maybe get some chores done around the house. But be back here Monday when we come back. In the meantime, good night and God bless.